This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
You have to be strong in today's world. Keep your focus and what you believe in, how to achieve all your dreams. Keep moving forward. Never accept less than who.
Happy Friday, Bahamas. Thank you for tuning in to 96.9 FM, The Hit Back. I am your host, Gia Singh, and joining me in the studio this afternoon are my co-hosts, Amanda Ferguson and Larry Strawn. I confess that we are not experts on any of these topics, so to you, our listening audience, we welcome your thoughts, feedback, and opinions. Welcome, Amanda and Larry.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Great. So good to see you all. I haven't seen you all in a while. Everything's been good?
Everything's been really good, yeah. We just came off of Valentine's weekend, so for a lot of small businesses, I'm sure it was very busy. And I guess a big love fest for most people, huh?
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Awesome. So we have a lot to unpack, so let's get started. Today, we will be discussing non-disclosure agreements, typically called NDAs. We will also be discussing the local coconut vendors, and we will be discussing cancel culture. To join in on the conversation, please text us at 242-422-4796 or call us at 242-323-6232, 242-325-4316, or 242-325-4259. So let's kick off the conversation with non-disclosure agreements, NDAs. So NDAs are legal contracts mainly used by businesses, companies, and public figures to make sure certain information is kept confidential between the parties. In short, an NDA is your basic protection whenever you need to trust someone with valuable information about your business. There are several situations in business that will require you to share private and confidential information with another individual or company in order to ensure that the other party respects the confidentiality. A non-disclosure agreement, or NDA, is often used. For example, you may get a call from a person or company and they say they love your work and want to work with you, but you have to sign an NDA. So Amanda and Larry, what do you do? Amanda, I want to throw this to you first, especially saying that you are a small business owner. You are the founder of Biggity Candles. So I would love to get your take on this subject.
Yeah, so in today's world, I believe an NDA is just as important as in an employment contract. In fact, I think it should be included in every employment contract, no matter how big or how small your business is. For a small business in particular, it's extremely important that the people who you work with, who you surround yourself with, that they are trustworthy. And in one of those ways of ensuring that is by having this legal document that can protect you, protect your business ideas, protect the information of your suppliers, protect your clients' information. You may have clients that don't wish to have their name disclosed as to a service that you may provide to them. And in order to obtain that business, to keep that business, you have to keep the confidentiality of them at utmost importance. And so your staff and your business partner, you should have that binding agreement between you two that solidifies that trust.
I agree. Larry, do you have any input on that?
Yes, certainly. Coming from the financial industry, non-disclosure agreements is very important for secrecy purposes. And it's very important for, regardless of which supplier you are using, it's very important for a non-disclosure agreement to be signed. We've found out that non-disclosure agreements can be signed by the owners of companies, but sometimes the the employees who are actually dispatched to the field may not have a true appreciation for that non-disclosure agreement. So in the course of my tenure in the financial industry, it's also very important to ensure that the employees who are dispatched to your company on behalf of the vendor, that they have a full appreciation for non-disclosure agreements.
Certainly.
I agree.
Yeah. One of the things, too, when it comes to NDA agreements for those that may be signing them, it's always a good idea to carefully read over, or have your lawyer look over this particular document carefully, especially if you are the person being asked to sign a unilateral NDA as the person receiving the information. And this is important because you may be able to negotiate the terms as it relates to when, if ever, you can talk about the partnership, venture, and the amount of your liability, penalty should you accidentally disclose information. This is clearly very important because, at what point should you be able, as a small business person or any business person, signing a NDA and saying that you can never speak about the partnership, the experience that you have learned. Case in point, as a small business person, you may decide that you are working with a pretty established company. You would love to be able to tell family and friends about your business, this business opportunity. But because you have signed an NDA that speaks to you never being able to disclose this relationship, what are your thoughts on how that affects your resume going forward?
Well, I think you have to look at it as from a business mindset. So what exactly is that going to cost you in the long run? If you have a company that wants to work with your business, but they say, hey, listen, we would like to work with your business, but you need to sign a non-disclosure that will not allow you to ever speak of being a part of this business relationship, you're going to have to take a step back and say, well, financially, does this make sense to me? Is this a business relationship that's going to continue throughout the years, that's going to provide me stability when it comes to income? And how important is it that I have them on my resume? So you run the risk of not doing business with this company, losing out on that revenue, just to be able to say that you worked with them. So if they would ask you to sign an NDA, then I think that's just up to any business owner at that point. You have to weigh the benefits versus what the risk would be. So let's say a huge organization wants Biggity Candle Company to make candles for them. But they say, hey, listen, we want you to provide us with X amount of candles, but we don't want your name on it. We don't want no one to know that you did it. And here is what we're going to pay you. Now, I have to look at that and say, okay, well, financially, does this make sense to me? And if it makes sense, then I'll sign the NDA. Every business is going to take its own stance on that.
Right.
And
right.
for me as a small business, I definitely would have to look at it and weigh my options there. Is this going to allow me to create a lasting relationship with a company that will provide me a constant stream of income? Then I have to definitely take a business mindset instead of a mindset that will say, well, I would like people to know that I've done that. No, that's fine. I don't need to let people know that I've done it. The fact is that I know that that's my work out there, and I don't necessarily need to share that information. So from a small business perspective, I can give you that outlook on it.
Correct.
Yeah, definitely. I think non-disclosure agreements should be looked at a two-way street. It's not, if a business is asking your company or you as an individual to sign an NDA, it shouldn't be viewed as a point of weakness. It should be viewed from a point of strength. I think it's similar to client confidentiality. Do you really want your financial information to be broadcast on the street, whether you have a good relationship with the third party or a bad relationship with the third party? I think once you look at it from that perspective, non-disclosure agreements can be quite beneficial.
Correct. And the other thing is that needs to be taken into consideration is that some of the times you bring someone into your business with the hopes of forging a profitable relationship, but there's no guarantee that that's actually going to move forward. And here you have disclosed so much of the inner workings of your
Right.
business that may not materialize into a full-on working relationship. So these are the things that really need to be considered when you allow people to come in to your space to hopefully try and forge a strong relationship.
But actually, let's take a step back. It's non-disclosure agreements is not necessarily with a third party. It could also be with employees that you hire for your own establishment. That's a form of protection for your own business as well.
Absolutely.
You could have disgruntled employees who may transmit your information to third parties. They could necessarily quit in protest and start their own competing business, try to poach from your own clientele. So non-disclosure agreements should be looked at a form of protection within your company as well as when dealing with third-party vendors as well.
No, I agree. And to touch on what you said, Larry, with the competition, I believe that an NDA should also include a no-compete clause in there. That means that if I've invested time in you as my employee, I have shared information with you that I wouldn't share with my competitors. You now know where my suppliers are. You now know some of my trade secrets. You now know who my clients are. And so this helps, like you said, to protect not just my ideas, but our company as a whole. And the no competition clause in that NDA would allow a sense of relief on the employer's end that if you leave the company for any reason, that you can't go out there and either work for the competition directly or start your own business in direct competition with me. Now, there is a time frame that is put onto the no competition clause in an NDA. However, I think that's up to, and I'm not an expert on it, so I can't tell you for sure the time frame, but I think that's up to the employer and the employee to figure that part of it out. Being employed in the financial world prior to starting a company, I know that I too had to sign an NDA as well. And so that's where I first became familiar with it. And I do understand the importance of it. Working for someone else, you may not understand the importance of it as much as should you have your own business.
Right.
Then you truly understand it because, like I said, you share information with your staff on a daily basis. They see the way that you conduct your business. They understand your trade secrets. They also understand up and coming items or events or things that you have coming out, ideas. Even with a business partner, it's super important, I think, between business partners for an NDA to be signed because
definitely.
you don't want to be stuck in a business partner or a business relationship with someone that goes bad simply because you're afraid that they're now going to take your ideas and go ahead and use that for themselves because you may not be in a financial position to go ahead and start your own company. You now have this relationship with this person, and that there will help save yourself at the end of the day.
Again, we want to hear your thoughts and opinions on this subject, so please text us at 242-422-4796 or call us at 242-323-6232, 242-325-4316, or 242-325-4259. We would love to hear from you, our listening audience. This brings me to the other question. Are NDAs binding or simply a scare tactic? Is the cost involved in legally pursuing a perceived or known breach worth it? Before my co-hosts start to answer that question, we have a call coming in that I'd like to take. Caller, you are on the air.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We're talking about non-disclosure agreements.
We're talking about non-disclosure agreements. What are your thoughts?
Probably sometimes is it even what the paper is written on. That's my thoughts. I'll tell you why. I probably should have tested it, but when I submitted an application to the Bahamas Development Bank, fantastic idea. About a few months later, I saw the idea being instituted in the hotel over Paradise Island.
Uh-huh.
Now. If I had had a non-disclosure agreement, my recourse would have been to sue the Bahamas Development Bank?
Why not?
Okay. Now I see the benefit of it.
Yeah,
So
it protects you. It protects you and your ideas. That's one thing that someone should not be able to take from you is your thoughts and your ideas. That's hard work that you put out there. That's your creativity. And so if it's something that you came up with and you went ahead and submitted it to whomever institution or whoever, even just a local vendor, and you come back and they have taken your idea as their own, I believe that we should be protected against these types of, to me, that's a criminal act. That's theft.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, it's too late now because most of the principles are dead.
And okay, caller, thank you very much for the call.
All right.
And further to the gentleman caller's point, that's a very, very real fear for a lot of Bahamians. And I've heard this for many years. A lot of Bahamians are afraid to venture into a bank, to ask for a loan, to start a small business, do anything along that business line. And because they are afraid that the banks may turn them down, and the next thing you do, you happen to see your idea being implemented by someone else. So it's a real concern for the Bahamian public at large. Now, like I said earlier, none of us are experts in this topic. The goal here is to get you all thinking on the way forward when you do have an idea, how you should approach it, things you need to consider. Because honestly, do any of you think that if you walked into a bank for a loan and the lender said, can I have, why do you need this loan? And you said, okay, I would love this loan to start a small business. And the banker says, tell me about it, because of course I have to put forth the proposal.
Right. And a business case. Yeah.
Correct, a business case. And you say to the banker, hold on, let me get my lawyer to shoot you over the NDA. Do you honestly believe in our culture, in our Bahamas, that loan officer can sign that NDA committing the bank? Because, he's not committing himself personally. He's actually committing the bank to that. Do you think we need, if it's not something that we are used to doing, if it's not something that's currently implemented, should this be things that we should be considering?
That's a very good question. I think ultimately the majority of our foreign-owned commercial banks do not approve of loans locally. So there is some consideration in having your proposal perhaps sent directly to the regional office, because ultimately they're the ones who are approving your loan.
No, I think I like that, Gia, because I think that we need to start taking an initiative in our own protection. So if you do have a business idea and you do have to go to a bank for a business loan, of course the bank needs their protection as well. They need to know, like you said, what is this loan for? Is this something that we think is going to be viable? Is this something that we're going to give you the money for? Do you think we're going to get our return? However, you're right. You should be able to also say, listen, before I disclose this information to you, because I may have $1 billion idea, I would like you to sign this non-disclosure agreement that protects me. And I think that should be the norm. I think that we should market and propose for that to be the norm in not just our culture, but I think in society. Now, in our culture, and as a Bahamian, I believe I can say this, in our culture, we are a big gossip culture, right? And so let's say you have your friend come in and you see what they're doing, or your nemesis. You're getting on the phone and you are calling so-and-so and telling them this. Now mind you, we're talking about a bank, right? The bank, I assume, would have their employees sign an NDA. That means that you can't disclose to say who is a customer of your bank. Where we go from this, I think, not just the NDA is important. What's more important to me is how are we going to enforce the laws of when you break that NDA?
And that is why I raised the question. Is this something that is possible, or is it just a scare tactic that we have? Because Mandy, you brought up a really good point in that when you said, we're a big gossip community. So is the unofficial NDA, when I pick up my phone and I call you and I say off the record? We love to use that term in our community, off the record, and then you spread it to somebody else. It's off the record until everybody knows about it. And of course, you have to be able in the court of law, I would think, to be able to prove this case that indeed there was a breach.
Right.
Larry, any thoughts?
Yes, I completely agree with both of your comments on this topic. Not only that, I do recall the commercial banks in terms of their forbearance or mortgage default program, whereby the applicants.
Well, I think, Larry, what it is that right now we have so many businesses popping up. We have so many small businesses because I think the pandemic has truly bred a lot of entrepreneurship. We've realized that perhaps we need to find a way to make our own money. And so in doing so, you have a lot of businesses popping up. Now, a lot of these businesses are also popping up from being employed from the exact same type of business they were at before. What is that doing to our culture? That is not promoting any type of real revenue movement within our country. What it is, it's taking revenue from each other. Instead of us being creative and promoting and doing our own things, we are now taking what others are doing, who we may have worked for. Like, let's say I was a tuna and grits vendor and I had an employee. During the pandemic, we've had to lay off people. So my employee now goes and starts their own business, which is great because every employer would love their employees to continue to progress.
Right.
We don't anticipate being with us forever, but we do not want you to go ahead and become our competitor. We want you to go ahead into something that you want to do and continue to move forward so we can look at you and say, wonderful, I will support you the same way that you supported me. So a lot of people right now have decided to go ahead and become their employer's competitor. And I think the NDA would help a lot of people to stop that mentality and instead tap into their own creativity and breed their own type of business, their own form of business, so that we can all do something different. For instance, Potter Ski Dock. When we talk about the vendors underneath there, every single vendor does the same thing. They serve the same food, the same drinks. If we had a vendor that served conch fritters at this one, the next one, conch salad, the one after that, fried fish, when you have a tourist or a local who would like to go ahead and visit that, we would be able to spread the love and share it throughout our community instead of everybody trying to take food from the next person's mouth. So I believe, and I know it's a far stretch perhaps for some to see it that way,
Right.
but if you had an NDA in place, it would then, and not only in place, but if the penalties were enforced, it would allow us to be able to say, okay, well, I know I can't do that because I'm going to get in trouble for it, but let me tap into another creative side that I have, that I know I want to be my own entrepreneur. I know I want to do something, but what else can I do? Can I use that as inspiration instead of copycat? And I think that's one of the benefits of an NDA, but it needs to be enforced.
Well, that's actually a good point. It's really how enforceable is an NDA, right? I think, and is there a barrier, a financial barrier in pursuing these NDAs?
Yeah.
Because you could have an employee who would have copied your ideas, but how do you prove that in the court of law? Mm-hmm. And is the barrier so high that it makes it almost unenforceable? Will you pursue the petty type of initiative, so to speak, versus the multifaceted NDA type of infractions?
I mean, I think it's a trickle-down effect, to be honest with you, because even if it was enforceable by law and then you went to court, unfortunately, I think our court systems are so backed up that by the time you get in front of the judge will make their ruling and say, well, you now owe this person whatever the amount is that you agreed to. Now, the plaintiff can say, well, the defendant, I think, can say sorry. Can now say, well, okay, I may owe you $2,000, but I can only pay you $25 a week.
Yeah.
And then the court's going to say, okay, done. And then I have to run after you for $25 every single week. Yeah. So I think it's a trickle-down effect. So if we can start to enforce all laws, all rules, all regulations, then things like this would just fall into place.
Correct.
Yeah.
I want us to take this, we've addressed the NDA from a business perspective. We're about to take a break now, but when we come back, I want us to look at some other sides of the NDA.
Wait, why you look so mashed up like clothes out the washer?
No, wait, just a hard day, wait.
Hard day? What happened? The breakfast lady ran out of tuna and gritty.
We need to start joking about everything, This serious, boy, this real serious, boy.
Wait, what's serious? Tell me.
Alright, well, today, boss gave us, boy, one big contract. And nobody else get a chance and nobody say nothing.
Boy, you know that ain't right. You know government contracts ain't supposed to go that way.
Yeah, but nobody's saying nothing. Boss man just tell people to sign the papers. Then he send me to meet this boy downtown and collect this envelope.
You need to tell somebody. You need to become a whistleblower.
You know I's a real man, but I never blow no whistle. I be drunk all my life and drunk,
No way. A whistleblower is someone who tells people what they see when they see something wrong happening at work.
But I ain't no whistleblower, and I ain't no snitch. I still white there,
But ain't nobody can know it's you. All you gotta do is call Crime Stoppers, or you could text them from inside the Crack Crime Bahamas app. They don't ask about you. And your call goes straight through to Miami, so nobody know you is. And if you text, your message get mixed up like Kong Salad.
Call 328-8477 from Nassau or 242-300-8477 from the Family Islands.
Throughout our lifetime, we must all make decisions. No matter how we choose, the right one just needs to be made. Like having J.S. Johnson Insurance Agents and Brokers as your insurance partner. We've been serving the Bahamas for over 100 years. Whether you need home, motor, marine, or commercial insurance, make the right decision. Call 397-2100 or visit jsjohnson.com.
J.S. Johnson Insurance. Peace of mind.
Welcome back. This is 96.9 FM, The Hit Back. And this afternoon, we are continuing our discussion with non-disclosure agreements. Amanda, we had a text that came in. You want to...
Sure. So it says, "Hi, everyone. I also find that many folks believe that their idea was unique to them. Oftentimes, ideas I or my siblings have, some people, I guess, have pretty good ideas, but we don't act on it. Not long after, somebody else comes out with either the same, improved, or a watered-down version. So I say that to add that the burden of proof is not so simple, and in many cases there was no breach." And correct, the burden of proof is not simple. However, if you do sign an NDA with a company, no matter what that company does, you now have a legal binding document that states that you, yourself, cannot go ahead and either, if there's a no competition clause built in, you can't compete, or you cannot disclose that information to anyone else for a particular period of time or in perpetuity. It just depends on what you've signed. So while you're right, you're not able to particularly prove that the idea was original. That's not the point of the NDA. The point is that you will not either be in competition and you will not disclose information about that business or its customers, clients to anyone else.
I guess it comes back to the old adage, do unto others as you would love to have done to you. Now, if you're going in to start your own business and you're going to take on employees, whether they are family members or non-family members, because we all know how friendship and business sometimes can end up, or having a family member work in your business is not always the best thing for the business. So it all comes back to that adage, do unto others, as well as, like Amanda said, you have a binding legal agreement that should be honored.
That's a very good point, Gia. In terms of business, being a business owner, I can imagine that your insurance costs can also increase as well. You should have a indemnification with your company to ensure that if an employee, or if one of your employees are in breach of a NDA, then your business is protected somehow by having an insurance against the breach of that agreement.
Correct. But realistic, even though that's a really good idea, I think that would more be feasible for larger companies.
Right.
Because as a small business person, listen, I could barely pay your national insurance. and here you come talking about you need insurance. I mean, clearly it's something that every business person should consider. But I'm thinking from a realistic standpoint, I don't know how feasible that would be.
But that goes back to how the business is set up from the onset, right?
Correct.
Because you need to ensure that your personal finances is separate from your business finances.
Correct.
To ensure that in the event there's an injunction against your company, that your personal assets are not party to that lawsuit or default.
No, that's right. That's when you set up your company for sure. You completely separate all ties from personal in regards to bank account and property. You create a whole other entity that is just your business, so that if that just bottoms out, at least you still have your apartment to go back to or your home to go back to.
Right, definitely.
The other side of this that I want us to discuss this afternoon is when it comes to the rights of victims. We all know or have heard from time to time there are relationships that may go asunder. There's, divorce. There is, someone may be being sued for some sort of assault, and the victim is asked to sign an NDA so that they do not go out there and malign, that there's some settlement agreement that's reached. And we've seen this mostly when it comes to these high-profile cases in the U.S. with sexual assault. And so therefore, the victims are paid a huge sum of money, but they're also asked to sign an NDA. What do you all think about this? There's a trend of thought that says that the myth is that NDAs protect victims after a traumatizing event. And the reality is that NDAs often re-traumatize victims by isolating them from potential support and preventing them from discussing what happened. What are your thoughts?
I can agree with, I believe in this situation, the non-disclosure would then further victimize the victim. First of all, if you've gone through something traumatic and you are pursuing legal action against the person, the company, whatever that has caused this on you, if you're going to come to a settlement you're going to have to sign an NDA. That's what you're being paid for. It's hush money. You're
Right,
being
exactly.
paid
Exactly.
to keep quiet. So you now, once again, everything is it's a decision. You have to always weigh both sides of that scale. Is this money enough for me to live the rest of my life knowing what happened to me and not being able to speak out against it or get the required help that I need? Is that money good enough? Is that what I'm going to do here? Or you keep your money, and I want the world to know what you did. I want the world to know. I want people to learn from this. So it's just a personal choice, really and truly. Either choice you make, there's a pro and a con to both sides of it. So do you take the hush money or do you stand up? And every situation is different. And so for that's a little bit of a broad look at it. But I do believe that a non-disclosure agreement would protect the perpetrator more so than the victim,
Yeah.
because that perpetrator then, the world doesn't know what they can do, so they can do it again to someone else and then just pay them too. So
Right. Yeah, definitely. It's more about the perpetrator, and just to revert on what Amanda said earlier, if the victim signs a non-disclosure agreement and they receive a huge sum of money, the money they receive can still go to help that victim receive the counseling that he or she will require. Just because you sign a non-disclosure agreement, that doesn't mean that you're not able to be healed emotionally, physically, and mentally from the trauma that you would have received. It's just that in terms of justice from the legal perspective,
Well, we honestly
you may
don't
not
know
have received that.
Correct. We honestly don't know what the terms of the NDA will be, but I would hope and I would think that it would not prevent them from going out and seeking, or the victim should make that a part of the settlement, that at least I can seek mental and emotional help for my trauma. Do you have?
Yeah, we had a text come in. This person says, "Good show, but to tell you the truth, I do not think our country has the discipline or honesty to implement or respect an NDA properly, sad to say." You know, I believe that this is a wonderful country that we live in, and we have so much potential. And if we could fix the smaller things, the bigger things will come into play. The NDA may seem like a small thing, but if we are able to take one thing like this and really enforce it, then we would be inspired as a culture to be able to continue to protect ourselves. For instance, I remember as a child, there was no such thing as a seatbelt law. Now, we may have had a seatbelt law, but I don't remember ever it being enforced. Not until many years later did we start to enforce the seatbelt law. Now,
Sorry,
go
Amanda,
ahead.
but Bahamians knew better because
When you go to the
when you
States.
travel,
When you traveled,
this was something that was
you
enforceable.
fell into place. This was not a problem. And so I think too that, you know, like you had said, Gia, we take advantage because this is our country. You know, well, this is our country, what they going to do to us? For instance, right now we have a mask mandate. We are mandated to wear a mask in a public setting or when we are walking around. However, and as controversial as this may sound, I drive through Bay Street and most tourists don't have on their mask. But the Bahamians are expected to wear our masks. And I see, you know, officers just looking and greeting them and I'm thinking, what are we really teaching our Bahamians here? This is a law, this is a mandate. Now, whether you agree with it or not, or whether you do it in your country or not, this is what we're doing here. Because when I come to your country, I have to follow the rules. Our country, we have small hospital systems. We have 2 hospitals for our entire island. And so if something happens, then that burdens the hospital system, whereas you can hop on a plane and you can go back to your country where you have probably more resources. So we have reasoning behind most of our laws. And so you're right, you know, if we can implement and we can follow through with these rules properly, I mean, this would honestly, if the trickle-down effect from something small would really and truly, I think it's inspiring, it's inspirational if we can make something happen by following these rules and laws. It can really just blow up in a positive manner.
Definitely.
Correct. Co-hosts, listening audience, I would love to hear from you. Please join in on this conversation. Send us a text, 242-422-4796, or call us, 242-323-6232. I want to put a humorous spin on this. There was a woman who sparked a debate after having friends sign an NDA for gossip time. That was the headline, and there was a debate on social media after TikToker Brianna at Breezy Baby posted a video about having her friends sign a non-disclosure agreement before gossiping. The video on TikTok has been viewed over 3 million times and has over 3,000 comments. Before I venture into this, I want to take this caller. Hi, caller, you're on the air. How can we help?
Good evening. I just wanted to your show. I caught the piece where as relates to it appears to be double standard as relates to laws when it comes to foreigners and Bahamians and what's being taught or what you're teaching Bahamians to think.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, from time at Memorial, it was always appeared that there were two laws. Even classism. I mean, not even when it comes to foreigners, it appears that there's one law for the rich and the poor, the short person from over the hill. Even when it comes to certain crimes, it appeared that the little man would be called this,
Would be held to task more so than.
Right. So my question is, subconsciously, we all know it, even though, I know it's taboo, but there were certain places that were able to run numbers for years, and everyone turned a blind eye. But when I guess someone else didn't get the license, and when they appeared to do it, the same person who were allowed to do it said, how could you let this guy do it? So that's like a double standard. And
Certainly.
I don't know, it's hypocritical, but she made a great point, and we could belabor that point some more. Well, what in the psyche of Bahamians, what are you teaching us?
Correct.
But I'll hang up and listen, but so far, it's good.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, caller. We just briefly want to touch on that because, that is the reality. It's a sad reality of where we are today in this country. There seems to be different standards for a different class of people. So that will definitely be a topic that we can address in full. However, I want to move on to this part of the conversation about having your friends sign an NDA. So Larry, you have a dinner party, for example. You have a dinner party. You want to share some intimate details of your life. And before all of your friends get together, you say, everyone needs to sign an NDA in order to participate and share. What do you think this is a real thing? This blogger, this was something she actually did. Okay? And the feedback was swift. But what do you all think about this? Having your friends sign an NDA to share intimate details of your life.
Well, are these business partners or
No,
are they
this
really
was
friends?
just
Exactly.
Right.
These were-
Because the NDA is a legal document.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right,
but it can be
so-
signed by anyone.
It can be signed by anybody.
Yes, but if Amanda, Gia, if you provide me with an NDA, I'm going to have my lawyer review that document. I am not going to sign that document because I understand that document has a legal bearing.
Yeah.
Yes,
and
but
I'm not a lawyer.
But the bigger picture here is what she was trying to establish is, there are a few thoughts to consider on this. if I came to you as your friend and I said, Larry, I'm having a dinner party. I'm just inviting my inner circle. And, we know that at this dinner party, everyone shares personal details about their life, right? So there are a few trends of thought. If you say no, well, if I ask you to sign this NDA, am I saying that I don't trust you? And if you deny signing the NDA, do I then look at you side-eye and say, Larry doesn't want to sign the NDA and therefore he's going to share the details of this dinner party?
I would think so. I mean, if all of us are at a dinner party and we all sharing personal details of our lives, why should the information I'm sharing be held to a higher standard than the information you're sharing?
Well, the thing is, if you didn't think to ask your friends to sign an NDA, and maybe I did, then that's not on me, that's on you.
That's being quite cheeky and underhanded.
Well, I personally...
Underhanded, no, because she has brought it up front. This particular blogger let her friends know in advance that this was going to be on the table. So when you enter the room, please, sign here, please.
I think she needs to find some new friends. Because let's not get mistaken here. Like Larry said, okay, NDA is a legal binding document. You think of it in a business perspective.
Right,
and
exactly.
I think this is very interesting. Something I would do? No, because if I were to call you a friend and I confide in you, then I already trust you, right? And so friendship and business, two completely different things. Business, I do see it as a necessity. Friendship, I think that at this point, if you have to have a friend sign an NDA, you need to go talk to a therapist and not a friend. Because the therapist is supposed to be quiet, that's a part of their job. But if you need to discuss something with a friend that you're not sure if they're not going to say anything or not, then you need to find someone else. But I believe that what's interesting about this is if you as my friends, I tell you, like you say to you, to come over to sign this NDA, you'd feel a way about that. You would be like, hold on, wait a second. What's going on here? I thought we were friends. Okay, I'm going to sign it because I want to know what's going on. But if I was a celebrity and that was a part of just coming to have dinner at my house, you would be surprised how quickly you would sign that in the blink of an eye.
Exactly. Yes.
Exactly.
That's true.
It's true. Some of the Brianna, the blogger, received some comments, and I'll just share two of them with you. One of the comments were, if you need friends to sign an NDA, why are they still your friends?
My thoughts. You sure that wasn't me?
And another viewer commented, what happens if they spill your tea? How can you prove it was them that spilled? So just a funny take as we wrap up that particular topic. Larry, Amanda, do you all have any further input?
We have another text here. I just wanted to make sure I get this out for the person.
Yes.
This person says, great show as usual. I heard you say that you don't want your, I guess this is supposed to be employee, to be your competitor, and that doesn't sound right. They also went on to say, great show as usual, the NBA, I guess asking if the NBA is possible in Nassau. So yeah, I made the comment that you don't want your employee to be your competitor, because if you're looking at it as a business mindset, when you hire someone, you're hiring them to help with the potential growth of your business. If you have someone working for you, but then they're also your competitor, how is your business going to grow? No employer wants their employee to be a competitor. We want you to be a team player. We want you to be a part of the team, help the business grow so that we all grow together. So that's where that comment had come from. So I think in any aspect, in any business, that's kind of the mindset, that's the mind frame. And the NDAs are already possible in Nassau. I've signed one before. And I think this is a pretty common thing in banking, in offshore industry and trading, in these types of businesses that have a very client-sensitive nature, that the NDAs have been around for years.
Correct. I think what we need to really consider, and like when I started this conversation, it was to get the Bahamian public at large thinking about these things. Don't think that because you may be a tuna vendor as long as you have one employee, these are things you need to consider, okay? Yes, you can go online and maybe draft up something.
You can, absolutely.
But, if you can't afford it, my suggestion would be have a lawyer look over this document on your behalf. The other thing in relation to what the person that sent the text, something Amanda mentioned earlier, and I am a firm believer when it comes to intent. If I take on an employee and the intent for them joining my business is to steal, because that's what it boils down to.
It
I mean,
does.
we could pretty this up as much as we want. If the intent is to steal my business model, steal my supplier information and all that comes along with this, with the intent to go ahead and mirror my business, that I have an issue with. If the intent is to, I like how, G is doing business, I like her business model, and I think I can improve on this somewhat and put my own spin on it. It's not plagiarism. It's not, any form of copyright. It's I'm dressing this up slightly different.
Right.
I may be able to, and not to say because I may be able to digest it that, everyone should fall in line with that, but I think other business owners may be able to digest that a little bit differently.
Yeah, I think inspiration
Exactly.
and copycat are two different things altogether. If you love the way that our business model is and you want to go ahead and start your own thing, once again, not in direct competition, because at the end of the day, that's kind of what it is. Sorry, just saw a text. I'll read that in a moment. I think that, that's what it boils down to. You can be inspired by many, many things. And if you're inspired by the person that you work with, the company, the organization, your coworker, at the end of the day, you want to do them justice and you want to be creative. So there's a saying that imitation is a form of flattery, when in actuality, imitation is a lack of creativity. And so what you want to do is you want to use your creativeness. You want to be inspired. Artists find inspiration everywhere. So the text that we got just before we go to break, it says, but y'all have to be realistic. This is Nassau, and Nassau is not a real place. I live in a real place.
So do I.
But I just think that, there are a lot of things that we can do as a nation, that we can make a lot of positive changes.
Certainly. We're going to go to break now. When we come back, we will be talking about the coconut vendors.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
Good afternoon, I'm Tashina Robinson, and here's a look at some of the stories topping the news at this hour. Scores of terminated urban renewal employees can reapply for new positions, according to Minister of Social Services Obi Wilshcombe. He explained that some of the workers who were let go, their contracts had expired and weren't renewed. With the urban renewal program undergoing a restructuring process, new positions, said Mr. Wilshcombe, could now become available. Doctors Hospital CEO Dr. Charles Digges says the health care facility is faring well as the fourth wave of the COVID-19 pandemic subsides. However, he says the hospital continues to remain vigilant as to what's happening on the global front. He says officials are prepared for the possibility of a fifth wave of COVID-19 cases. Assistant psychology professor at the University of the Bahamas, Dr. Deetra Bethel, shedding some light into the cycle and signs of abuse. One key component to breaking the cycle, she says, is housing for victims. A lack of a safe place often leads battered persons to return to an abusive situation. And with that, we wrap up your Guardian Network news headlines at this hour. I'm Tashina Robinson. Stay tuned. AP News is up next.
When I had got prostate cancer, my family didn't know if I was going to live. At Cancer Treatment Centers of America, within days, I got an appointment. They presented me with treatment options, and we set up a robotic prostatectomy. When my scans came back, there are no signs of cancer. They don't see you as a number, they see you as a part of the family. I'm going on with my life. That's a real gift.
Call us at Cancer Treatment Centers of America.
Burger King Nassau is taking spice to new heights with the new Baja Whopper and Baja Crispy Chicken Sandwiches. Enjoy your choice of a flame-grilled Whopper or crispy chicken filet topped with chipotle sauce, guacamole, jalapenos, cheese, lettuce, tomato, all on a fresh potato bun. The new Baja Sandwiches at Burger King Nassau pack plenty of flavor, and with an ice-cold Pepsi and fries or onion rings, it's the perfect way to fill your day. The Baja Whopper and Baja Crispy Chicken Sandwich are only available at Burger King Nassau, where taste is king.
Ukraine. I'm Tim McGuire with an AP News Minute. Tensions remain high in Eastern Europe with more than 150,000 Russian troops near Ukraine's border and stepped-up shelling and a car bombing in an area of eastern Ukraine controlled by pro-Russian rebels. Former National Security Council Russia Director Fiona Hill says Russian President Vladimir Putin's long-term goal has always been to split NATO.
To push the United States out of Europe. It's a challenge to the United States' role as a guarantor of European security, but also as a partner and an ally of European countries in the NATO alliance.
70 people have been arrested in Ottawa, Canada, as police tow away big rigs and other vehicles that have blocked the city streets for some 3 weeks. Interim Police Chief Steve Bell says all the protesters have to do is leave.
Every moment that they can leave, they are afforded the opportunity to leave. We have well-developed plans that will ensure ultimate removal of those protesters from our streets.
I'm Tim McGuire.
Tired of banks forcing you to use technology to bank the way they want you to? Your convenience is important. So no matter what your banking needs, Commonwealth Bank's friendly staff are always available in branch for that personal one-on-one service. But when you choose technology, our online and mobile banking app offers you state-of-the-art functionality. The choice is yours. Commonwealth Bank. Bank the way you want.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
It's the hit back with Natasha Black. It's the hit back.
Welcome back. As we start this segment, we want to start talking about the many coconut vendors that we have been seeing on the streets in Nassau recently. I had an opportunity to speak with a coconut vendor. I will call him Vincent because that is his first name.
I hope he didn't have you sign an NDA.
Right? Vincent was kind enough to speak with me as I asked him certain questions. And I inquired with Vincent if the operation that he was currently running was his own, or if he was working for somebody. He answered that this was indeed his business. Vincent confirmed that. I asked him how long he was doing this. He said 2.5 years. He started out on Harold Road with a friend. They couldn't agree on, how he would be paid. And so without having an NDA and a compete clause, Vincent went on to open his own coconut business. He also said that he is doing this because he has 2 young kids, and I've seen at least one of Vincent's children out there on a consistent basis while he's working in the hot sun. And he says this is a way for him to support his family. That really brought a human factor to what these young men are doing, because as we know, they could be out doing other things. However, even given that, we understand that there are laws that are in place that need to be followed. I inquired with Vincent whether or not he has been approached by the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Environment, and he said when he first moved to this location, he was visited on a daily basis by one of these agencies. I asked him if he currently had a health certificate. He did not. However, he said the MP for that constituency was aiding him in that. I cannot verify that. I am only relaying the conversation I had with this young man. So, co-hosts and listening viewers, what are your thoughts on these coconut vendors? One other thing. I asked Vincent about does he feel as though he's receiving support from any government agency in his small business to be out there on the street? Is he receiving feedback on how to dispose of his coconuts? Because I think that's one of the biggest issues outside of the health certificate. The biggest issue that I know I have as a Bahamian, that it's become an eyesore. And I have seen one coconut vendor who has a little makeshift cart that he has hitched to the back of his vehicle, and he puts the empty coconuts in that cart, and that is the vendor that's across from, I think it's Sanders Beach, where the
Right,
Kentucky.
Sanders Beach,
yeah.
right. Mhm.
So I've seen that particular vendor with a cart, and I've seen. So it has become an eyesore. Let's talk about it, co-host and listening audience. What are your thoughts about the coconut vendors? How can we support them? How can we help them? These are young men who are trying to provide and not be out doing other illegal things. Let's talk about it.
Gia, Amanda, I do know that the coconut vendor story definitely touched off a national conversation last year during the height of the COVID pandemic. We had quite a number of coconut vendors on the street, hustling, trying to provide for their family members and loved ones. We all know the story of Marvin Johnson, who spent 2 nights in prison last year, was fined $800 for operating a coconut stand during the national lockdown. We had wider members of society help to pay for his fine so that he could return home to his little one. So the coconut vendors, I would say there's an asterisk next to these vendors. They definitely have the sympathy of the wider community. As you rightfully said, Gia, Vincent has been doing this for the past 2 years, so clearly there's a market for this. Regardless of there being a quote-unquote health crisis with the coconuts remaining on the side of the street, regardless of whether he has a health certificate or not, there is definitely a market for the sale of these coconut water. But that doesn't exclude the fact that there needs to be greater regulation. That's very critical. Regulation is definitely required. Even on, we talk about non-disclosure agreements. If we driving on Harold Road, after you pass the roundabout by Prospect Ridge and Harold Road, between Tawny Darling Highway, between
showing your age, Larry.
yeah. Sometimes there's 4 or 5 vendors in that one little strip, all competing.
Correct.
And what that shows is there's a market for these wares.
A market and no regulation.
Right. So, Gia, you said one thing that I want to just touch on. You mentioned that, at least these young men are trying to provide an honest living. Now, let's touch on this honest living part of it. So, yes, anytime that you go about and take an initiative to provide a living for your family, for yourself, is admirable. Whereas doing the opposite is not something that we want to encourage as a culture, as a country. However, we still have rules and laws that need to be, adhered to. We have to abide by them. And this is part of those small little things that we can do as a country that will then impact the greater good of us. We just talked about rules and laws being regulated for the NDA. Well, as a small business, I have to obtain a business license. If I'm handling food, I have to obtain a food handler certificate. I have to pay my taxes. I have to pay national insurance if I'm self-employed or not. And these are all things that, and yes, I understand it takes a bit of an investment to do so. And so things can be put into place where people who don't have the necessary means to, the financial means to do so, for instance, maybe a government assistance program that can train and then release people into the workforce for coconut vending. What makes us think that the only way now that we're extracting the coconut water from the coconuts is the only way to do it? The Bahamas can be instrumental in creating a new way, or we can have a coconut vendor who has a great idea on how to do it. Let him draft up an NDA, go ahead and get it done, and let a government assistance program or let a bank or someone believe in him. And I know I'm speaking from a dreamer's perspective because that's what I am. But when you operate a business, you have to follow the rules and the laws of the country. And while, it is admirable that these young men, young women, children are taking the initiative to become entrepreneurs, if I have to follow the rules, you have to follow the rules. A business license should be obtained. A food handler certificate should be obtained. Let's think about it. These young men are there. They are extracting water from the coconut. The water is going in a container and you're purchasing it from the side of the road from them. Great, that's fine. I don't care where I purchase the coconut water from, side of the road or the food store. If it's fresh and I'm supporting a local business, I'm all about it. However, when you have to relieve yourself and you go behind a tree and you do so, where are you washing your hands?
Correct. This is one of the things I understand from vendors that are on the side of that have their businesses on the side of the road. That outside of what Amanda just basically said, is that the Ministry of Environmental Health has to come out and look at the location that you want to set up your side road business. They have to determine if this is viable, if there's running water.
That is a necessity.
Or if there is a restroom. Now, of course, in Vincent's case, there is a restaurant, a fast food restaurant that allows, I guess, anybody to walk in and relieve themselves. However, that's quite up the road. So to Amanda's point, these things are indeed lacking. And, you have, and that's why I raised the question. I raised the question to him and now to us and to the listening audience. How can the government get involved in helping these small business people by assisting Amanda in all the things you have said? Because you have the small business, I think it's the SBCD, for small businesses that can maybe round up these people, these vendors, and say, hey, we want to help you. We want to help you because honestly, Amanda, like you're saying, you're coming from a dreamer's perspective, but a lot of these vendors may not have graduated high school, so
but
Larry wants to get
Larry.
something in. So go ahead, Larry.
Definitely, Gia. The Bahamas government, they do have a regulation for the roadside coconut vendors. There are quite a number of requirements or rather, there's quite a number of permits that the roadside vendors require, particularly coconut vendors. One, they need an occupancy certificate from the Ministry of Works. They need a food handler certificate from the Ministry of Health, to Amanda's point. They also need to have a sanitation certificate and inspection from the Ministry of Environment. Their businesses need to be registered with the National Insurance Board. They need a vendor's permit from the Royal Bahamas Police Force.
Wow, that's a lot.
There's 2 more things they need. There's 7 things in total. They need a business license from Inland Revenue. And finally, they need a food business registration from Bahamas Agricultural Health and Food Safety Inspection. So yes, those are the requirements for street side coconut vendors.
It is. I mean,
Thanks, Larry.
yes, thanks, Larry. That is very interesting to hear that we do have something in place for that. But once again, we come
Is it
back to
being
the
enforced?
rules. Exactly. The point of, are these things being enforced? As a small business, it's very difficult to conduct business. It is difficult. And it's not just difficult because of where we are. I think it's just a worldwide phenomenon where if you're smaller fish in the sea, the bigger sharks kind of, they have it a little bit easier. It's the same thing here when it comes to opening and operating a business. It is not easy. Small businesses suffer the most. We don't have any, there's a lack in tax breaks that we can get. There aren't very many concessions given to us as small businesses. So I really empathize with the difficulty of doing business, but a part of being an entrepreneur is ensuring that you remain compliant. And, we have some texts coming in as well. I don't, if you'd like me to read a few of them.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay. I agree, this person says. Personal responsibility starts also with obeying laws and rules of society. Being poor or disadvantaged is not an excuse for breaking the law or for not following rules and procedures of society.
Agreed?
Yeah, I agree with that as well. This person also says, with respect with the coconut vendor thing, I sympathize with his situation, but the law is the law. We have to enforce our laws. When we start making exceptions, we will have an unregulated nation. This topic has seemed to really strike the listening audience today because we have quite a few texts. It says here that, one moment. Okay. It says, my thought on the coconut vendors is that we do need more laws for pop-up businesses, and health certificates need to be enforced. It's too much. I have seen some unhealthy practices displayed by the vendors. And I know that we're talking about coconut vendors, but this also goes with, persons who serve food from the back trunk of their car.
Exactly.
People
Lunch
who
vendors.
just set up shop on the side of the road. I mean, if it was just a free-for-all and we can all just, cop a squat on a piece of land with my tent and go ahead and make money, then, I think the whole nation would just be running around doing that, wouldn't we? Instead of, having to pay our dues to the government and society
Correct.
that we're supposed to. Now, do I agree on all of these dues that we're paying? No, I don't. But that is the rules and the laws, and so in order to be a good citizen, that we have to follow these rules and laws.
Certainly. Now, this takes us down another rabbit hole, which is the health certificate. Can we be real for a moment? How much detail, how much is being asked or required for our food vendors, our food handlers that are on the side of the street or even in a full-on restaurant? How secure should we be as supporters, clients, when we're going to support these businesses? How comfortable should we be that the health certificate entails a wide range of tests? Can any of you speak to this?
Well, I personally had to take a food handler's course before. It's been a while, but I know it was one day. It was about a couple hours during the day, maybe half a day, and it's required on an annual basis if you're working in the food industry. Your employer should also request this. This is something that they must have on hand in order to show anybody, I guess, who requested if a government entity were to walk in and to ask for your food handler certificate. This is something that you should have on hand there at your restaurant. Do I think that the course is as inclusive as it should be? No, I think that it really is a very just vague course, and I think that it has so much potential to really cover a lot of areas. So for instance, if you're working in a bar and you're not handling food, perhaps we can have a course on just drinks and the way things are sourced and what's the proper way of sourcing apple juice from apples or whatever. Then if you're doing food, what's the proper temperature chicken should be kept at? Or why are we defrosting it in the sink? Or whatever the case may be. And so when you're coming to people, let's say the coconut vendors on the side of the road, there should be perhaps a special course for them. Do they need to really understand the inner workings of the food arena? Maybe not, because they're handling coconuts, which are nuts and that produce a liquid, which is drinks. So, I mean, the food handler's course per se needs a little bit of a revamping to it. But even when you take it, what exactly are you taking away from that? There's no
Like a
blood
TB
test
test,
or
exactly.
anything like that you need to take. But this is just a course where you sit down and you learn about handling food.
I agree with you that certain industries, maybe it can be tailor-made to doing something a little bit different, because case in point, in particular with the coconut vendors, they're using a sharp object to extract this liquid, and then they need something sharp to take out the jelly or the harder coconut that's in there. And God forbid something happens where they get a cut. They need to be able to understand that, you know, liquids mixing with liquids,
Yeah.
bodily fluids mixing with liquids that a consumer may come in and consume, that's an issue.
Or the sweat dripping from
Or
my
the sweat
head into
dripping,
the coconut water.
exactly, you know, or even the fact that the coconut is on the ground. How do I know Tommy wasn't walking his dog there in the evening and the dog relieved himself?
Exactly.
Now you dropped your pile of coconuts there that are on the ground. Your hands are now all over the coconut. You know, it's a whole thing that really needs to be considered and addressed. And by no means am I saying, you know, let's shut down these operations. Once again, this is just to get, you know, us thinking about this situation, and not just for the coconut vendors, but also for all street vendors. We have a call coming in. I'd love to hear what this caller has to say. Hi, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, very, very interesting topic that you guys are discussing today. Listening to some of the points Amanda was making, and yeah, I think there has to be accountability, all right, as it relates to the street side vendors. When you look at both sides of the spectrum, a lot of times we take pity on persons who are trying to make a living, but I think in terms of the accountability, we also have to take into account the source of their product, right? Because you have a situation where you see them out there with the coconuts, but where are they getting them from?
Right.
Right. And who is following up in terms of policing that or holding them accountable to know that they got them by way of justifiable means?
Correct.
Or is it a situation where some poor soul is having to peep through the window for the next person who's going to sneak in their yard and steal coconuts out of their tree? So, you know, there are other factors that need to be taken into account, and I think in terms of having someone who has oversight for these individuals for the process, in terms of that accountability, that's going to be significant. As it relates to persons just randomly establishing their business on the side of the street, in terms of assistance that the government may be able to render, I think it would be good if consideration can be given to these persons being able to maybe acquire a mobile unit, for example, right, that they can work from, that may very well have incorporated into it the means of them being able to relieve themselves.
Certainly.
Right? and of course being able to wash up and the rest of it. So there has to be a level of accountability, and of course, a lot of times we focus on the fact that these persons don't have the means financially, what have you. But again, if you're going to have a society of laws, rules, regulations, there are some things that are going to have to be mandated that you're going to have to conform to.
Certainly.
So that's pretty much the long and short of it. But thanks, very interesting show, and I'm continuing to listen in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This caller made some really great points. Thank you for the call coming in. And to actually address that question with one of those questions with Vincent, which was, how do you obtain your coconuts? And of course, he said, from trees that belong to nobody, and then also trees that belong to certain individuals, and sometimes it's a yes, and sometimes it's an outright no. So that question was raised with Vincent. I want to take another call, and then we'll interact with the text coming in and the comments from the co-host. Hi, caller. Thank you. You're on the air.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I really called. Now, you're saying about the coconuts being, I don't encourage anybody to get anything illegally and do it like that. But the coconuts, they do coconuts. I understand they do it at Atlantis and other places too. The coconuts could come in the same way as the poor vendors does it, right?
Which is?
They come up off the ground and what y'all just explained.
No, yes. I was saying that when they are extracting so they've gone to a particular tree, or they've gone to a particular tree, whether it's a tree that's not in someone's yard or in someone's yard. And so they have now delivered those coconuts to their business place, to the side of the road.
Yeah, but I mean, in the same way, somebody else could take the coconuts out and accident may happen. It's the same way.
Yeah, but the somebody else isn't selling that, huh? That's the difference, right?
Yeah, but you know what I really want to say? And I want people to look at it too in Proverbs 30 and 14. I would say it's that there's a generation that, just trying to just destroy the poor.
Sorry, sir. We can't really hear you because of the background noise. Would you mind speaking a little louder for us?
All right.
Oh,
okay. We lost that caller. The call wasn't clear, but I think his trend of thought was that we need to, or we should be considerate of the less fortunate, I guess. So, caller, thank you for reaching out and having a discussion. Larry, did you have a point before we go to the text messages?
I think the last caller was what he was trying to convey was that we know that on the hotel properties, the hotel staff themselves are selling coconut water to the hotel guests, which is in direct competition to the nearby vendors who will also be selling their own coconuts to the same guests on the beach. Take, for instance, Atlantis, Cabbage Beach, for instance, where we know recently in the papers there was some dispute. The vendors on the beach was complaining that the hotel is, to the NDA discussion we had earlier, the hotels are now in direct competition with the beach vendors who are selling their own coconut wares. I think this is what the caller was trying to convey when he brought up the topic of Atlantis.
Correct. But they would all fall into the same category as far as, are they licensed? Are they operating within the laws? So I think that's the greater discussion here today.
And one more point, Gia and Amanda, was regarding the first caller. I do know that we do have a set of rules and regulations regarding the roadside vendors. The government agency that's overseeing the roadside coconut water street vendors is the Bahamas Bureau of Standards and Quality. So it's just a matter of whether they are enforcing their own guidelines that is out for public consultation regarding the coconut water street vendors. And if they're not doing so, then it's really an indictment on the Bahamas in general.
Correct.
We'll come back to the text.
Correct. Thank you for the calls that we've received so far. Thank you for your interaction. When we come back from the break, we will be taking the text messages and finishing up our conversation.
When I got prostate cancer, my family didn't know if I was going to live. At Cancer Treatment Centers of America, within days, I got an appointment. They presented me with treatment options, and we set up a robotic prostatectomy. When my scans came back, there are no signs of cancer. They don't see you as a number, they see you as a part of the family. I'm going on with my life. That's a real gift.
Call us at Cancer Treatment Centers of America.
Drive happy with free fuel for a year with CIBC First Caribbean and Esso. Use your CIBC First Caribbean Visa debit or credit card to fuel up with $25 or over at any participating Esso service station, and you are automatically entered for a chance to win the grand prize and weekly prizes of $200 in fuel or cash. Offer runs until March 20th, 2022. Terms and conditions apply. Visit CIBCFCIB.com for more details. The Esso brand is a trademark of ExxonMobil Corporation and is used under license.
It's the hit back with the hash of black. It's the hit back with the hash of black. It's the hit back with the hash of black. It's the hit back with the hash of black.
Welcome back. This is the Hit on 96.9 FM. I am your host, Gia Singh. I am here this afternoon with Amanda Ferguson and Larry Strawn, and we are going to continue our discussion about the coconut vendors. Amanda, you have some tags? Let's get to it.
This seems to be a very good topic here. A lot of our country is responding. So we have a text here that says, "Good show, guys. Nice topic. Some vendors do steal coconuts. I work to a school, and the young fellas, they come and help themselves and don't ask. Then they're trespassing on the government's campus. But I know we all have bills and family to take care of, but I think they should do it the right way. Love the show." And I agree. I think, we have to follow the rules and the regulations. If you're going into someone's yard and you're taking something that does not belong to you, it's stealing. It is what it is.
Certainly.
That's one of the questions I have personally about this issue here is, where are the coconuts being sourced? Do you have someone who says, "Here you go, guys, here's a trolley of coconuts, it's my donation to you"? Great. Are they getting it from government land where the trees are just there? Or are they taking it from other people's yards where they have absolutely no right to go? I think that's a part of looking at whether or not this is something that should be regulated, right? Another one says here, we have to encourage law and order. Besides the coconut situation, we also have persons cutting down our pine trees and making coal to cook with, and even send out of our country, which appears not to be regulated. The burning of the trees are hazardous to the environment, and just the mere cutting down of our pine forests, which is KIT regulated, is also an area for concern and the need for laws and enforcement. I think all of the texts really just boil down to the fact that laws need to be enforced, the rules need to be enforced, that there should not be exceptions made. Now, do we then say, well, as a coconut vendor, as a roadside vendor, you don't need to obtain all of these documentation, but you do need these particular items, and here is a course you can take at a government-assisted program. We're going to help you get off of your feet, and we're going to go ahead and regulate this and make sure that you adhere to these rules and laws, and if you don't, then I'm so sorry, but you're going to have to find something else to do.
Correct. That's why I think it's important for this industry, especially with the coconut vendors, for them to, the appropriate government agency to reach out to them, maybe someone from the small business, development to go out and have a conversation with them. Because who knows, today it's a one-man show of someone who is operating outside the perimeters of the laws, but maybe with guidance and coaching, they can develop into successful business individuals, and they may be able to, with the proper coaching, set up their businesses in a way that is more health conscious to the public.
Right.
We have a guest here that has asked, he said, my apologies. It says here, my thought on the coconut vendors is that we do need more laws for pop-up businesses, and health certificates need to be enforced. Can your your co-host, call off those requirements for vendors again, please? So Larry, would you mind please just letting the listening audience know what those requirements are set forth by the government for coconut vendors?
Yes, certainly. Now, the source of this requirements is from the Bahamas Bureau of Standards and Quality. And there are 7 requirements for our roadside coconut street vendors. Those requirements are: 1, they must have an occupancy certificate from the Ministry of Works. 2, a food handler certificate from the Ministry of Health. 3, a sanitation certificate and inspection from the Ministry of the Environment. 4th, business registration from the National Insurance Board. 5, a vendor permit from the Royal Bahamas Police Force. 6, business license from Inland Revenue. And finally, 7, food business registration from Bahamas Agriculture, Health and Food Safety Authority.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that, Larry. Mandy, do we have any other?
We do. We have another text. This person says, with respect to the coconut vendor thing, I sympathize with his situation. I assume she's referring to Vincent, or he is, and my apologies. But the law is the law. We have to enforce our laws. When we start making exceptions, we will have an unregulated nation. So these texts are all one more, sorry. Good afternoon. If Atlantis is allowed to sell coconuts, then other major hotels, so where does this leave the entrepreneurs?
Right.
Okay, so with that point there, I'm glad that the person texted about that. So if Atlantis patrons, or sorry, my mind is in another industry, if the Atlantis hotel guests are sitting on the beach, which is owned by Atlantis, now I know that you cannot own more than 2 feet. I saw you both look at me. You cannot own more than 2 feet past high tide line, right? But high tide line doesn't go all the way up to the very border of Atlantis. So let's say the patrons are sitting on Atlantis property at that point. And that's a part of the amenity there at Atlantis, is that you can order yourself a coconut served there, or coconut water in a cup. Why? I'm a bit confused here. Are we saying that a major hotel, I don't like to call names, so let's just say a major hotel offers coconut water to its guests, that is taking away from an entrepreneur on the beach with perhaps no business license, no permit, no food handler certificate, not really sure where the coconuts came from? That's taking away from their situation when that's an amenity provided or concession provided by that major hotel. I'm a little bit confused as to, I may be missing the point, and if you can enlighten me, that would be great.
Yes, certainly, Amanda. What this issue touch off national discussion, I think, a few months back on Paradise Island. There is a historical property adjacent to the Riu, where vendors generally had access to the Cabbage Beach in general. So because the vendors no longer have access through that property, then they have difficulty selling their products, their their crafts, not only coconut water, their straw bags to the guests, not only of Atlantis, but all adjacent hotel properties. Further, there's a second public access beach ramp that's further east on Paradise Island, whereby that access point now is it's closed off on the weekends. So now these street vendors are only able to access that property or use that access point Monday to Friday. The problem with that access point is it's so far east, it's east of the cloisters. So that means these street vendors have to then carry all of their products about a mile west back to the Atlantis property. So the concern is, of course, from looking at it from a small business perspective, is that, okay, I am trying to provide for my family. When I sell my products, the money stays here in this country, and I'm able to provide for my family. So I think the concern is, okay, by you adding so many barriers to me selling my products to the guests, then it's naturally easier for the hotel guests to buy directly from Atlantis.
I think, sorry, Gia, go ahead.
So, am I understanding this correctly in that the coconuts that are being supplied by Atlantis, the hotel, and this is what the person that reached out is claiming, these are, Atlantis is earning this revenue. So is this another street vendor, or is this, so this is actually, this is sanctioned by Atlantis, unlike what goes on the beach with the jet ski operators,
Right,
where
exactly.
there's a disclaimer
Right.
that you interact with them at your own risk and peril. So should someone get sick from this coconut water that's being supplied, this is on Atlantis.
Yes.
So let me just break it down here, because this truly has me just a little confused. And, growth is all about changing opinions. And so I just want to make sure that I understand. Hotels have been serving coconut water from the day they've opened, right? From the day they've opened, they've had coconut water on property. Now, whether it's served in the nut or whether it's served in the cup, hotels in the Bahamas serve coconut water. It's a part of the allurement. It sounds to me it's more of a beach access issue.
Right, beach access.
Now, which I completely understand, and I understand that's an issue and that needs to be resolved. But I don't understand if a coconut vendor is having a problem that Atlantis is serving coconuts to its patrons. For me, those two don't go hand in hand. That's like saying I'm a fruit punch vendor. Atlantis is now serving fruit punch, so now they're taking bread out of my basket.
right.
That, for me, it doesn't gel. Now, beach access issue is a whole different topic, which I'm sure Gia is a whole different show. But, because that's restricting Bahamians from land that are really, that's our own. That's the beach. We are Bahamians. We should have access to the beach. Should we have access to the Atlantis beach? No, because what belongs to the company themselves, then that is theirs. But should we have access to the beach? Yeah. That's like saying the hotel has now beach activities. So now that's an issue for those who are providing beach activities on jet skis. Like you can't generalize that, So I think that's a broad generalization of it, and it's a totally different issue when it comes to beach access versus, small business entrepreneurship versus large major corporations.
Correct.
Most definitely.
It goes back to the core of this discussion. Like Dr. Seuss would say, if you're serving it on a train, on, wherever you decide you are serving your small business is, it has to be regulated. So that could be on the beach, that could be on the side of the road. If it is unregulated, if you are not following the proper protocols, then indeed that is an issue. We have come to the end of today's show. I want to thank you all for your participation. Amanda and Larry, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you
And
for having us.
certainly.
It's been a
Thank you.
pleasure.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's just a break. We still have a few more minutes, so we will be right back.
Awesome.
Fidelity, we're good for you.
We believe in relationship banking. We take pride in getting to know our clients. You have access to knowledgeable, approachable ambassadors and financial coaches so that we can recommend the best product for you. At Fidelity, we care about you. From your financial health to your physical health, we can relate to you because we're just like you. Come and start your relationship banking experience with us today. Visit us online at fidelitygroup.com. Visit any of our branches in Nassau or Grand Bahama, or phone 356-7764 in Nassau or 352-6676 for Freeport.
Fidelity, we're good for you. It's the hit back with the hash of black. It's the hit back with the hash of black. It's the hit back with the hash of black. It's the hit back with the hash of black.
Welcome back. My apologies once again. This is what happens when you don't wear your glasses. So I'm going to put those on now so I can definitely keep track of the time today. We have a caller coming in, and I would love to hear what this caller has to say. Hi, caller, you're on the air.
Godly day to this dark in a ways. We need justice, or law, and order in this country. Now look here. Speaking of the beach, right? Couple of things I want to say. The Bahamians have right to any beach, whosoever own it or not, up to the water mark, right? Speaking of Atlantis, Bahamians got rights to the beach up to the water mark, okay? Secondly, right, the Bahamians' money be marketing these hotels. Why is it that Bahamians' money be marketing these hotels or those hotels, right? And they be put through the changes in which they are being put through. That's not decent. That's very much indecent. If they're gonna be having this problem, the Bahamian people, right? Then the government got to stop taking our money and marketing those hotels.
Well, caller, thank you very much for your input. We want to stick on the topic that we are discussing today. So thank you for your call. As we continue this discussion, Mandy, do we have any?
I'll check right now.
Okay. So, like I said earlier, the whole idea of the discussion today, especially as it relates to our Bahamian citizens, the coconut vendors, the encouragement is to encourage them to operate within the guidelines, within the laws. And, they are receiving support already from the Bahamian public. In the case of Vincent, like he said, he's been doing this for over 2.5 years. So clearly, if there was not a market for it, none of them would be out there, and he made it clear. And I asked him, I said, is this sufficient money for you to take care of yourself and your kids? And he said yes. Now, granted, that's relative to, to his expenses and his lifestyle. But he's happy, he's content doing that. And so I think Vincent falls into the category of not only the street vendors that are out there, but not only the coconut vendors, but all of the street vendors that are out there, the lunch vendors, the cookie vendors, all of the vendors that are out there. Any further input from you all?
I mean, definitely, if you are someone who has an entrepreneurial spirit and you want to do something for yourself, I encourage you to research it, to go ahead and make that step, to make your dreams come true. Like I said, I am a dreamer, and so I do understand that. But I do really encourage you to please research it to the point where you know what the rules, the laws, the regulations are, so that you can determine whether now is a good time for you financially, or what you may need to do to get yourself to that step. But I would not encourage you to do anything that is not within the rules, the laws, the regulations, within what our government has set forth for us to maintain and to operate a society that is cohesive and coherent of everything that's going on. So if we can do this, like I keep coming back to the point of it being no matter how small the situation is or how small the issue is, if we can correct it from something small, it's going to blossom into something that we're going to hold our standards to. So I do encourage anyone out there with a small business to continue to push forward, to continue to strive, to do your best, to include an NDA. I am very pro NDA, to include an NDA within your business with a no competition clause. And just believe, have faith in God, and just know that you can continue to operate and make your dreams come true. Just do it the right way.
Larry?
Yeah, I definitely echo what Amanda said. I know we are focusing primarily on the coconut vendors, but this is definitely a broader discussion to include all our vendors, both large and small. We saw the 7 requirements that's needed for the coconut vendors. Whether the government is following through on those requirements is another discussion altogether. But I think from a overall perspective, following the guidelines is definitely a requirement. We do know, even recently, we see that the government sometimes come down hardly on the coconut street vendors, but ignore the large elephant in the room with the bigger businesses not following their own guidelines and establishments. So I think it needs to be a across the board,
Correct.
right, and not just purely come down harshly on the down and the downtrodden, but across the board.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think it's with the coconut vendors, it's something that's so visible now because, the streets, I equate what's happening on the streets with seeing the pileup of coconuts, whether they leave them blatantly on the street fronts or they try to attempt to discreetly put it behind the bush, which is somebody's property. I equate this to the issue with the conch shells that sometimes you see with the conch vendors. For years.
Pardesky Dock.
On Pardesky, on the
Montague.
It's an issue. We want to support all of these vendors, but there has to be a proper way of disposing of these items. Because, as you know, you leave the coconut out there, you leave the conch shell, water accumulates. We're going into the summer season with the mosquitoes. So it's a bigger issue than than just a coconut vendor or a conch vendor or a food vendor being out on the street unregulated. So these are things that we really need to address. Any further? Today we had a really interesting conversation. We encouraged and highlighted some items which were which are the NDAs, the non-disclosure agreements for small business people. Something to definitely consider in your business. It's never too late. You can pull a template offline, but I highly encourage, if you can afford it, to have this discussion with your lawyer to protect yourself and to protect your business. And, we want to encourage anyone that wants to go into a small business, do it the right way. Seek knowledge so that once you have, implemented your business plan, you want to get out there and, with knowledge, your business can also grow.
Right,
So
definitely.
once again, thank you all listeners. Thank you for your participation. And thanks again to Larry Strawn and Amanda Ferguson. Thank you for joining the show today.
Yes, thank you so much for having us.